I will call the regular meeting of the Irmo Town Council to order for April 21st, and I will recognize Councilman Younger to lead us in the pledge of allegiance to the United States.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Brother Heavenly Father, Lord, we thank you for this time that we can gather together, make decisions for this town. Lord, I pray that you just give us the wisdom to make the right decisions. I pray that you bless each one that has come tonight and take care of them as they return to their homes. In your name we ask. Amen.
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 And the next item on our agenda is reading of the minutes for April 7th, 2015. Is there a motion for the minutes to be approved as written? So moved. And is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor then of the minutes to be approved as written, do so with show of hands. And the next item is the administrative briefing. Mr. Brown, do you have anything you need to add?
No, sir, not at this time.
Anybody else have any questions of Mr. Brown or anything? Being none, the next item is receipt of communications, and James Mack had asked to do a proclamation and put this on. He is at the voter poll tonight because they voted for Lexington County Sheriff. And he told me he might be here a little late because the place doesn't close till 7, and then you got to print out whatever they print out. And he asked if we could, if nobody objected, we could defer this and go on to the next item until he got in and then come back to that. So is that okay?
Take it out of order.
Yeah. And then the next item is presentation by citizens for things on our agenda tonight.
One there.
Oh, yes. Anybody else got a receipt communication?
Yeah, did you, have you, released the, findings of the orchestra investigation?
I haven't got them. You talking about the final report? Yeah, I haven't got
Either
them.
the final report or the preliminary report that you have received already?
Yeah, I haven't released, I haven't got the final report. Like I said, the preliminary report is like a halftime score, and I'm not gonna, there's nothing in there other than some of the bag counts, and I don't even know 100% what bag counts, or what bags, I just know they're off.
What else I'm saying, the preliminary report gave you an idea on which way you were going.
Well, it said they counted 5 bags out of 19, and they were off $11,194 or something to that effect.
So why don't you release the report so we can
So that's it. I can tell you what's there.
Paraphrasing, I'd like to see where you go.
I can write that down. I think I showed that. I'll look at it again and see, but I think that's pretty much it.
The reason why I keep bringing it up is it's making it very difficult for the orchestra committee to go forward and do their
agree with
business.
that. I don't think so whatsoever.
I'm sure it is. When we went to the committee, the Richland County Hospitality Committee, to seek the funds for the, for this year's orchestra, one of the first questions they said was, "What about that investigation of the orchestra? Do y'all have any solution to that yet?"
We don't.
You cause a cloud over the whole festival. And try to remove the cloud as much as possible.
That's your
so that you
opinion.
know.
This is receipt of communication, and that's not a receipt of communication. That's
It is a
wait,
receipt of what you wrote.
where's your communication that you got that you're sharing with everybody? Receipt of communication is to share.
You got the report. You won't release it.
I'm not
We're trying to
doing
get
a
it
receipt of
released.
communication, so that means I'm not sharing it. We've gone
So
over
you're not
this
going to
before.
share a report.
I think the same ditto is the same answer. Any other receipt of communication? None. Next item is presentation by citizens. For agenda items only, this is where anyone who wants to ask us anything that's on the agenda tonight or speak on any issue that's on the agenda tonight, they do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record. Anyone who would like to address it.
Peggy Grillett, 304 Cross Creek Court, Columbia. I'm president of the Lake Murray Irmo Women's Club, and we really do appreciate the prompt attention to drafting the ordinance to amend the town code. We would ask that consideration be given to adding an additional sentence to section C. It does say that we will not be charged any participation fees during the festival. We'd also like it to state that all revenues from the sale of the fried okra would be retained by the Women's Club. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, no unfinished business. Next item is new business. First reading of ordinance 1504, which I guess is that one that's there, to do with the Board Commission Committee Division 2 Orchestra. And I will just ask somebody if they want to make a motion, and I'll have to read it unless somebody wants to.
Okay.
Or you can to clarify what's in there now if you want to.
Mr. Mayor, I had asked that we come up with the ordinance, and just as a little bit of history, the contract that had floated around for 30 plus years had created some concern at the fact that it had not been ratified as many times as often as it should. Some felt that it should be, and that in the body of that contract it said that the town council would confirm the findings within that contract by ordinance. And there has been a search of the ordinances, and as I understood it, we could find no evidence that that ever took place. So to try to correct that, I asked that an ordinance be drafted. And basically the items on the ordinance read as follows. That the Women's Club, Lake Murray Irmo Women's Club, founded the orchestra as a fundraising endeavor to build a public library. Following the completion of the project, the festival had become too large for the club to manage. An agreement was reached whereas the town of Irmo would assume the responsibility to manage the festival with the following allowances and stipulations. B, that the Lake Murray Irmo Women's Club retain the exclusive right as the sole provider of fried okra during the annual Okra Strut Festival within the festival site. And item C, that the Lake Murray Women's Club will not be charged any participation fees during the Okra Strut Festival. I'm going to come back to that one in a moment. Item D, the Lake Murray Women's Club will be permitted to select the location of their choice for the sale of fried okra during each Okra Strut Festival. And item E, the Lake Murray Women's Club will be allowed a voting seat on the Irmo Okra Strut Commission. Recommendations will be approved by the commission and forwarded to the council for appointment. Going back to C.
Let's get a second first.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, first off, Harvey, you made
Well,
a
I'm going
motion.
to take it, he's making the motion.
I'm making the motion.
Okay,
And I'll
you didn't say it first, I just want to
I'm
make
sorry.
sure. Want to get it right.
Okay.
On item C, as was just brought to our attention, I think it's inferred, but to make it even more clear, item C, I think should be, and I'll offer it as an amendment, that the Lake Murray Irmo Women's Club will not be charged any participation fees during the Okra Strut Festival and will be allowed to retain all revenue derived from that festival on their behalf.
Well, I'll second that amendment.
Well, let's just discuss this real quick, and I don't, but, technically, and this is, I'm gonna let council make this, see, technically, we can't make amendments to the first reading. That's in our thumb. But we've done it sometimes and we haven't done it sometimes.
Okay, that's not a problem.
So, either way, as long as there's majority that wants to.
That's right. This is a first reading. If it will make it cleaner. And I know that we did try to circulate this a little bit to try to work out the kinks before it gets here. But, you know, I have no problem
You can do it
with,
second time or whatever. We can do it as long as it's-
with doing it. I made a motion for first reading approval as written. It was seconded. We want to vote on that.
And then next time we can change or add to it or whatever, because I think it's,
And then I'm going to immediately ask that that amendment be added to it for second reading.
well, it'll have to be added at the second reading.
That's right.
Yeah, yeah. Any other discussion?
Does the Orchestra Commission approve this? Mr. Luther, is that a recommendation for the Orchestra Commission?
Yes, sir. We submitted a letter of recommendation 3 weeks ago to the town. You should have saw that letter. I hope you did.
I did.
You did see the letter?
But I'm not talking, but you submitted before we had this ordinance drafted.
We did.
I'm saying,
We tried to get in front of y'all before you all had to go through all this, but, you know, that's okay. This will be more permanent, but yes, we do recommend that the Women's Club not be charged any revenue, and what the ordinance requires.
okay.
And I don't know if anyone gets the, I don't know what's called, the Uptown Municipal Association, that little magazine that comes out. I didn't bring it, I read it the other day, but I didn't bring it, I forgot about it. But there's an article in there, Jake, you can look at that too, but there's an article in there about
Emojis.
memorandums of understanding that basically say they're no good. I mean, they're good understandings and they're good handshake agreements, but technically they don't hold up. So I think putting it in an ordinance form is better. Even though the
That's
ordinance can be
exactly,
changed too,
Mr. Mayor, that's exactly why I wanted to do it this way to,
I don't know why it wasn't years ago. And the only thing I'm gonna comment on, I mean, most of this stuff in here I agree with, some of it I don't. I don't think we should give somebody unlimited free booths and unlimited free electricities and that kind of thing, however many that may be. So my recommendation would be that they get either one free booth or no free booth, and everything else is fine. But I know that's not going anywhere, and that's fine too. But because of that, I'd be voting against it. And just so when I raise my hand in opposition, everybody will know so that they don't have to ask me later why. But that's it.
It says one free booth in it.
No, they can get 4 free booths, 10 free booths, 5, I mean, they can get whatever they want right now, because it says they don't pay anything. So they would, you know, they can get as many free booths as they want. Not that they would want more than they get now, but still, they could.
What does it say you get 50 free booths at?
I think number C says they would not be charged for any participation fees during the orchestra, so that means they won't pay for anything. If I'm correct, that's read it.
That's correct.
Yeah, they won't pay them anything. We won't charge them anything.
Okay, so
They
what does
would
it
pay
say,
me.
well, what does it say you're gonna get more than one booth then? One location?
this item D says that they will be permitted to select the location of their choice for their booth space.
Right, so he's interpreting that saying they get 20 booths. What does it say there?
Because there's.
Or does it say they only get one? Are y'all understanding that they can get as many booths as they want, or do we need to clarify
Well,
that?
I think I tried to clarify that last meeting. Now that we're in our permanent home, we have kind of moved away from the quote 14-foot booth where we had to measure out in someone else's parking lot or on the street by the curb. And we had a footage. Now we're placing them in our beautiful park between the beautiful trees. And that may be 15 feet, it may be 29 feet, it may be 34 feet between the trees. And they have picked out a spot at the beginning of the traffic flow, and I don't know that there's anything that says that that's X number of spots. It's just the amount of space they needed between the trees. We didn't want to cut any trees down. So,
Ms. Peggy, does that interpret, do you interpret that saying you can have as many booths as you want?
No, no.
Okay,
Typically, we normally have, if we have one booth, it's usually 2 spaces. And if we have 2 booths, you know, that would be a total of 4 spaces. So last year, we only had 1 booth, which
Right.
was 2 spaces side by side.
because of our limitation between the trees. You guys are cool with that, you know what I'm saying? So how do you come up with all these booths from, Mr. Mayor?
Just like I said, I'm not gonna repeat it, I'll make an
You didn't
amendment to
say
it at the
anything.
next meeting, that they can have one, and I'll make that amendment, if it is agreeable, you can agree to it, and we'll all agree to it, and we'll add it to it, but that's been. We can't do that now, so, anyway, any more discussion? Y'all ready to vote? Yep. All in favor then of ordinance 1504, as written, do so by show of hands. All opposed? And then when we make the amendments, I might vote for it then, I'll see. The next item is approval to continue the concert in the park series for fiscal year 15-16. And I know we had some discussion at our budget workshop about taking the money out for that. And plus, it's something we have to reapprove anyway for the next coming year on the concert. So I wanted to go ahead and put it in here so we could discuss it and give Bob some direction and stuff. Whether to put it in there or whether to take it out. I'm going to open up the floor for discussion and see what we're going to do. And I don't know if we know, is it going to be the same 13-2 or whatever it is that we had last year?
Well, we happen to have the chamber CEO here, and it hasn't been going well for the first 4. There haven't been a lot of people that showed up. So, I mean, I don't know if you have a different plan for next year or you know, how we're going to make it grow. Or Thursday nights don't seem to be working so well.
We, just to share, it has rained every single one of them but one, and that first one, it was about 20-something degrees. We had a cold front, so it wasn't good. It wasn't good outside in the park weather. We have about $7,300 left from what y'all gave us last year with 2 more shows to go. I anticipate having probably about $3,500 roughly of that left at the end of this fiscal year. I have talked to a few people that used to head up the concert series down in Finley Park, and they do theirs on Sundays and draw a couple thousand people. So that was suggested, maybe trying a Sunday afternoon. If that is something that you all, I mean, that kind of idea spun from a group, if that's something that y'all want to continue, the chamber is more than happy to help take care of all of that and manpower and all that. This past one we did have Doubletree Hotel come out, and they didn't even know that park was back there. So even though a lot of people haven't come to it, I've been on the radio several times. We've run a bunch of ads, so I think it's increased the knowledge that park is there. So I think because a lot of people don't know that it's back there. So I got to do a great radio interview. I saw Rachel come in earlier on Cola Daily and the Palm just last week, and really got to talk about the town and the parks, and it was a really good interview. So even though I've been disappointed, but I mean we'll give it a go again if that's something that y'all want to do. I would say roughly we could do it if we wanted to increase the advertising. I mean, we had a very small advertising budget because, as you know, in working with orchestra bands and music can be expensive. So, but we're willing to do. We could pump more money into advertising and bring in smaller bands. I mean, we're happy to do that too. So we're here to help and promote our town and our parks if that's something that y'all want to continue to do.
So you're saying we just need to decide if we want to keep doing it, and then... And what day we want to do it on.
Correct. And I would suggest let's try, I mean, if we wanted to try, maybe give it, sometimes these things, I mean, when I first started with a bunch of festivals on the other side, when I just got started in this world, I mean, it grows. I mean, the first wine walk that they did in Lexington, we had 500 people there, and we thought we had hit it big. I mean, now they've got 4,000 people there. So it does take a time to, and I am kind of leaning towards maybe trying a weekend afternoon, maybe 4 to 6 or 3 to 5. and make it more, we've had bands that play all kinds of music, nothing vulgar or anything that you wouldn't bring. I brought my girls to one of them, so, it's a family friendly.
We used to do it on Sunday afternoon.
Y'all did in the old park.
At the old park, yeah.
And it was great. I used to,
Yeah, they
when I
were
first
fairly
started.
well attended.
Yeah. So, I mean, that Palmetto Health Amphitheater, I mean, when these bands come, they're like, it's like the Taj Mahal for the bands to play in. And so they want to play here. I mean, I could fill up the next 2 years just from the 4 bands that we've had because they all have different groups. But we are trying to use, people from around this area. It's amazing how much musical talent is in just this small area. But I really, the more I think about it, if y'all wanted to continue it, I think it might be a go to try it on Sundays. And of course, the chamber would staff it, and I know the parks guys help us if we need to get in a closet with electricity or whatever, and they come in with, guys are very helpful. And I don't think we haven't made a mess yet. We clean up our messes and try and recycle, everything that is recyclable. So.
Is that something you can work with the orchestra committee on to help you with that, or work with them together on it?
For how?
Putting that together and doing it.
I don't think we've had an issue of putting it together. I think it's just getting the people there, and unfortunately, Mother Nature has not cooperated with us. Me and Whit were laughing the other week. He said, "Y'all need to come out July and August. I don't have to run the sprinklers because it's not been a light rain. It's been a good heavy pour. I'm happy to. I just don't know where that partnership.
I think you could advertise it differently.
I think we could spend more money. I've been very lenient on, because advertising is expensive. I mean, we've done some radio, we've done some TV, and then, of course, all of our Facebook, Twitter, and chamber outlets. We share it on the town's page. But, I definitely think a heavier radio presence would help.
But you're not trying, my understanding is you're not trying to draw the world, you're trying to get the Irmo community together.
Yeah, when it was first brought to help get this event started, is we wanted people to use our town park that y'all just built. Right. That's beautiful, and to get people in there to see what all we have to offer right here, and keep people here in Irmo on a Thursday evening to come down, and hopefully after they leave our concert, go eat at one of our restaurants that pays business license fees.
Well, so my point is, instead of trying to advertise to the entire Midlands area, if you concentrate on the Irmo community, Friars Gate, my Orchard Court, advertising to the residents that are here, say, hey, Sunday afternoon, or whatever day y'all pick, come out with your family, let's just,
I think that's a great, especially if we switch to a Sunday. I think maybe doing some, neighborhood walk, flyers and getting them out throughout the communities is a great idea.
What about those, what you call those, banners that go across Lake Murray? Are those something we can do and have one permanently made up that just says concert this weekend or whatever day?
Our problem there is getting
Getting put up.
permission.
Because we don't have trouble.
The banners are expensive and you're limited to 30 days.
Right.
30 days, for the whole year, just 30 days at a time.
30 days per banner.
Okay. So we could put one up, if we had it on Sunday, you could put one up, say, the Sunday before,
Mm-hmm.
but then we'd have to have somebody take it down, put it up,
Does
take it down.
SC&G put those banners up, or does the one for the open
SEG's
space?
line and everything with it.
Well, we have.
There's also DOT regulations that go along with the banner permit. It's pretty complicated. Banners are expensive.
Yeah. I would definitely be, that's not a bad idea. I think some of the neighborhood, and that would kind of attract the people that live in and around here. I'm happy to call, we had a past chair from SC&G that still works there. Maybe they could help us. I could make those phone calls and get y'all some information back and come back with, how much it would cost to get flyers and maybe target some neighborhoods. Might be a great opportunity for you council members too to help us get out there and walk too.
And as far as what's left for this year, is any of those, they already set up, or could you move them to Sunday and just see, or?
We could, we have a agreement with the town just so everything was clean and everybody knew what was going on for the third Thursday of each month, so we've got May and June
You got
left.
4 weeks before the next one, you could
Mhm.
change it to a Sunday.
Yeah.
As long as you entertain it.
Yes, sir. And with a week, a month out, and if not, I've got people on standby that I'm sure could fill in. And we haven't signed a contract. I've got one contract, but with a variable that they might have to move. So I can make those calls and see if we can move and pick a Sunday. Is there anything else on Sundays going on at the town that's movies in the park or anything like that is for
I know
sure?
Thursdays, people probably don't say book a thing, but on weekend, that might be something we need to look at in the shelters. When somebody's looking for a,
The stage and amphitheater is not booked.
Okay.
That doesn't get booked on Sunday, so, that's wide open.
but if somebody's
Picnic shelters.
renting, say, both shelters, we might have a parking issue or something, but that would be the only thing
Correct.
to think about, we'll look at that too, maybe.
Tiffany,
Yes, sir.
I think I would like to see expanded to the schools. The talent at our schools is just phenomenal. Irmo High School Fine Arts Center, and saw those performances by those young people. It was professional. It was great. So I think we need to expand our youth of our community.
I think we could pick like one Sunday in the we do 6 months. So we could pick one Sunday, and that could be like for the schools, and then we could make a small donation to their performing arts center. You're right. Irmo, all of our middle, and we have them at the chamber for luncheon sometimes sing for us, and they're great. So plus it would bring people, when kids perform, parents come. As being a parent now, you go wherever they wherever they tell you they have to be. So I think that's a great idea too. Last year we did October, November, because we opted out for September to not interfere with Orchestra as the recommendation by you all, and then we're doing March, April, May, June. I think, July, from a standpoint of event planning, July's 4th of July, you got a lot going on, and that's a big vacation month, and now the kids, they can go back to school as early as the first week of August, so we just don't do anything in August, and then September, not to interfere with Orchestra. And I'm happy to come back, and if y'all want me to get some proposals together and a Sunday with a recommendation, and I can come back next meeting, I'll be glad to.
Well, does the council pretty much want to keep doing it? The concert?
Certainly.
We already got it committed for this year.
So this
Yeah,
year.
but for next year, so Bob can put something in the budget for next year.
I will-
would say yes.
We only got 2 more, May and June.
I would say yes, we need to try to use it up and do it, and
Yeah. I think if we change to Sunday, because it worked in the past, I think.
You're gonna move it, you think you can move it to Sunday?
For this year, I'll be tonight and tomorrow. I'll get on the phone with the 2 bands and see, and if for some reason if they would be willing, if I needed to move them to another month, if we continue, I can work something out. We're flexible, and we're here to help our town and promote that beautiful park.
we can probably vote on approval and then have you give us some information as far as dollars, so that Bob can put it in our budget for
I'll be glad
our
to.
next one in May, something, the end of May? Okay, so we got
Third.
4
Yeah,
weeks.
I can have something to you the 1st of next week if that will work. If not sooner, but definitely by the Monday or Tuesday of next week.
With the idea that we'll probably change to
Like
Saturday
you
or
said,
Sunday.
plus we'll have some money rolling forward.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I want to take that into account and see. And you'll see that, we've bought drinks and stuff ahead of time, and we just have those stored. So even though some of that expense we won't have again, because we've got plenty left over. And I'm happy to share with y'all. I have a breakdown of every dollar spent if y'all want a copy of that. Huh?
I don't want to see that.
Okay. Well, I brought it just in case.
So all in favor then to continue the concert in the park series for 15-16, with the understanding we don't know what dollar amount right now, but at least give us an idea to do so with show of hands. All right, and next item is approval of sub-thousand for the Oak Commission to hire an administrator and I guess, Mr. Walker, you put that on there, you can open up on that.
Yeah, we needed to, the orchestra committee has requested the, funds be available to hire an administrator for this year's orchestra of $7,000 in their budget. And we have it in our budget, our fiscal budget, $7,000, and they're just wanting to get approval. Am I correct? Get approval to spend the money. Is that right? Is that what we need to have?
Are you asking me?
Yeah.
We're looking for, here's the thing, we have an ordinance that reads, we may hire
Right.
an administrator, okay? In order to hire somebody, you gotta be able to know what you can pay them. Unfortunately, the way the council is going, we don't have a clue if we wanted to hire one, what we could afford to pay him. And right now, that's what we're looking for. We have $7,000 that we could pay somebody between now and October, which we think is a fair price. And we do have that in our bank account, so we're not asking for any money that we don't have. But the point is, we can't shop for an administrator, even if we wanted one, unless we know what we can pay them. And
So you just want approval to pay?
well, we'd like approval, yes. I think that that's a fair thing to ask.
But it was our understanding that it wouldn't come back to us for approval on the contract, and it's also kind of unfair to say you don't have a clue, because we voted on this 3 times down already. So to me, that's kind of a clue. I don't know.
How did we vote on 3
I
times?
voted against it 3 times, 3-2.
Oh,
One
we
thing
voted
that
3-2,
concerns,
yeah.
excuse me, the one thing that concerns me, telling you you can have 7,000 to hire administrator, fine, but then who is it?
Well, you didn't give yourself that luxury.
Well, I don't
In
think
your
we
ordinance,
have that much.
you didn't give yourself that luxury in your ordinance. You didn't state that I had to give you a name. Here's the thing, I can't go
But you're gonna
shopping.
use town funds, and we don't know if it's a convicted felon, somebody facing charges.
Well, you would have to
We
trust
don't
your
even know if
commission.
they're qualified to be an administrator.
You would have to trust your commission to know that.
Well,
Why did you appoint the commission?
I only appointed one of you.
Well,
I trusted her.
Appointed all of them.
who appointed me?
I don't know.
It's been
You
so
were so
long.
long ago, I don't know who appointed you. I know the town is handling it right now, and as much as you hate that or whatever, I
Is
have
the town
talked to the,
administrators?
no, I'm gonna finish this. I have talked to the town ladies who are handling it, and it's put Bob in a very bad spot to get him to take sides on this, and I'm not gonna do that, but the ladies have it handled. They're just waiting for you to tell them what to do next. I don't see why this can't go on until October, and then hire your administrator. At this point, all the letters have gone out, the things that need to be done have been done, to my knowledge. And the books are straight. And maybe it gives us a baseline of what to do in the future, which we have never had in the past, or we haven't had in years in the past. And that works both ways. It's good for the town, it's good for the person doing the job. Here's the baseline. Do it like this, financially and other ways, and do what the commission says, and that'll work. I think it's the only thing we can do right now.
I understand, Councilwoman.
I support you. I have supported you for many years,
Thank you.
and I would like to continue to. But sometimes you make it hard.
I'm trying not to be difficult, honestly.
Okay.
But here's another problem. Who is the go-to person in the town? You say the town is,
Bob would be the ultimate person.
are you
He has-
appointing town, or
We're not
Bob, as
appointing
the
anybody.
administrator
We're
for
just
the other?
handling the money because we don't know what's public and what's orchestra, so it's being handled the best way possible.
Okay, well, the best way possible would be an administrator position that we have done for years and years. As a town hero, basically. I hate to put Bob in that position, but we do need a go-to person. The town is two of twos, it's two a third. We can't say call town, we have to say
Call Bob, I mean, that's what's been
Call Bob.
happening. And
Can we say call the mayor?
Call Bob.
No, I wouldn't
Bob's
call
there
him.
to do it, and that's what we've agreed upon, and that's what we,
So you're appointing Bob as the administrator?
we're appointing him
Just
to handle stuff that he needs to handle
until
that y'all
September.
can't, or don't, I don't know, but
Well, you don't want to call him administrator, what do you want to call him?
I don't care what you call him, you can call him something nice or not, but it doesn't matter.
I'm not trying to be difficult, but I'm telling you.
If you are, this has
No,
been on
this
the
is where you
agenda
don't
3 times.
understand what you're getting
Just
into.
do a
This is where it does
sample
get.
Anyway, let's bring this in, this is a council decision, anybody else want to comment?
That's my opinion.
Mario, Paul, or?
I've said all along, I thought you needed an administrator. There are things, I know that Bob is being overworked with it. I know that the software is not being used, and there's gonna come a time when that all needs to come together. And whether that's being handled or not, I don't know. So,
Who's responsible for the orchestra then? We don't have anybody responsible for it?
Commission?
according to the ordinance, the commission is responsible.
And we
Okay,
have
the
an
commission-
external software handling that.
If the commission is responsible for the orchestra, and they're recommending that we hire an administrator,
They're not recommending we hire an administrator, they're recommending we give them $7,000 so they can go hire
so they
somebody.
got
We
the
don't want to
money,
get.
they got the $7,000, we just have to get approval.
Well, they hadn't got it,
Well,
so we
I
approved
hire
the
an
budget, the
administrator.
budget's not been approved either, so we can take that out. In fact, I probably will when we get to that. So, may not pass, but anyway. Are we ready to vote? Or,
All right, the administrator, the position is to handle the finances. Now, are the finances being handled?
Oh, yeah.
Administrators never handle finances.
They've handled the budget and.
The budget, the finances?
Yes, they
Someone
do.
did.
They never handle the finances, the money, other than writing a purchase order, that type of thing, but all of the applications, the placement of the people, making sure that we have all the food vendors have their DHEC approvals,
Insurances and all
all insurances, all of that type stuff into the computer so that proper lists can be produced for the parade lineup, all the rules and regulations, coordinating with the police departments, all of that, that was the administrators. Like, that had nothing to do with the finances part.
That's true, but bear in mind, 5 people paid to be in that parade last year. Just bear that in mind.
All right, so Bob, who's gonna handle that part?
We've got it all handled right now. Kathleen set up all the databases for all the applications that come in, the checks that come in, food vendors, information coming in, we check their insurance, DA,
And the fundraising will be responsibility of the commission,
always have,
with the chairman's Kirk.
right, always have.
So,
And this is just for this year. We're
that's
not
right.
trying to establish it, we're just forming a baseline. And from that point on,
Administrator, that's what you're.
whoever they want.
Would it be all right to save $7,000 and just
Yeah, it's
continue?
all right.
Yeah, but the fundraising, you said the fundraising is a chairman's job, that's.
No, I said the commission, all the commission members, but you got the
Yeah.
chairman as well. I mean, yeah, sure.
The administrator coordinates all that stuff, is what I understand.
No, the previous administrators
The
never
previous
done
have-
It's in
sponsorship.
the contract, no.
The administrator never did that, Kurt? The administrator doesn't
Are you asking
coordinate?
me a question?
I'm asking you, the administrator doesn't coordinate that fundraising?
According to your new ordinance, the administrator does coordinate the fundraising. That is
I thought, yeah.
That is their authority.
That's the
Not
new
the
ordinance.
commission.
Right,
Not the way it had been done in the past.
okay, I thought I saw it somewhere.
Well, I think
I'm
the
just
previous
wondering if,
administrator too kind of looked over and, whatever you call it,
Coordinated it, but didn't go out and do it because they were
So,
not
and this one-
authorized by the state to,
And I don't think
Raise
this one
those
does it either, according to the new ordinance. They just say they coordinate the plan as well, I think. So it's still, in limbo, nobody does it, basically. Unless you say that
It means
the
in the middle, it says
commission.
on the ordinance that the administrator does.
Mhm. So it says
What does the
it's
ordinance say? It says the administrator is responsible for coordinating fundraising activities, does it not say it?
I
Mr.
call a question.
No, Mr. Luther has already got somebody that's doing the fundraising because he introduced him to council 2 months ago.
So there's somebody doing that.
what he told us when he came to council and introduced that gentleman, that's one of your partners, and you said he was gonna be doing the fundraising.
Are you asking me a question?
I'm not asking you a question, I'm stating a fact.
Scott Malik, I think.
Are you asking me a question? If you ask me a question, I can tell you exactly what's going on.
Yeah, what's going on with that? I'd like to know.
They're in limbo just because of this. They have no idea what to do. They're not
We
out
were
raising
told
funds.
they were doing it.
They're not out raising funds because they were waiting for some definitive answers from council.
This is what I'm saying,
They
there's
had three.
nobody in charge of this festival.
I
You
think
have
we've
it
been
sit out
pretty
there,
definitive
nobody,
up until September. In October, it's all yours.
Anyway,
I'm sorry,
say it again.
Councilman, I didn't hear you.
you ready?
Yeah.
No, wait a minute, you can't call a question, what'd you say? Kurt?
I was trying to listen to Councilman Khan. I didn't.
She says it's in
We have
limbo,
all
it's in limbo until September, and then in
I didn't say
September,
it's in limbo. I said, we're just leaving things the way they are until after September.
so it's in limbo, according to the mayor, it's in limbo right now.
I
So
called the
then that's
question.
it.
There's been a call, is there a
So-
motion? Is it approved? All in favor of calling?
Wait, we have to call on the question here.
We've already voted.
Two.
We voted on it 3 times. This is the 4th time. I don't know how much clearer we can be.
So is everybody ready to vote? Or-
All right, for the next meetings, all the next orchestra commissions, I would assume Bob will be going
He
as a
goes
non-voting
on.
member of the commission.
Right, not as an administrator, we need an administrator to go there.
I think
So if you want to appoint Bob administrator, I'm happy, let's do that.
You were trying to.
that's what he's doing now.
Well, then make him the administrator, officially appoint him as the administrator.
So we gonna give him the 7,000?
Officially appoint him as administrator.
I don't know, we got that on the agenda right now, so we can look at that at a later date. Right now, we got approval of 7,000 for the Orchestra Commission to hire administrator.
Right.
Any more discussion?
Well, here's the deal, if you don't go for this, you might as well disband the orchestra commission.
I doubt it.
I
I
mean,
know, nobody's gonna do
I
that.
mean, really, because you're not listening to what they're recommending. You're not approving, you're not giving them the ammunition or the
But
tools
the
they
last
need.
meeting, they asked us to approve Tokyo Joe. I was set fire, ready to approve it. Then they said, oh no. it's
They never
the
saw
wrong
the
way."
contract. How you gonna approve something they never saw a
So
contract
don't
for?
tell me,
They
I'm
shouldn't
ready
put it
to
on the
approve
agenda and
anything
voted
they
for it if
want.
they didn't have a contract, if that's what they claim to need.
Excuse me, I don't believe they put it on the agenda.
It was on the
It was
agenda,
on the
they voted
agenda,
on it.
I'm ready to vote for it,
So,
and happy to do it.
Before, just, I'll ask our council,
You need to have an administrator, and they're saying that they want to be able to approve it.
help us.
I will try to help you. Here's basically what your ordinance says. The ordinance basically says that an administrator is approved. In effect, the ordinance is basically saying that you authorize the hiring of an administrator to function as the administrator. Then what it says is what the administrator is supposed to do. Now, handling of the funds is not necessarily one of the things the administrator is supposed to do. But you got an ordinance that says the commission may hire an administrator. However, that ordinance says that the administrator's pay shall be based upon his experience and upon basically those factors that are deemed reasonable. And it also says that the administrator, who is authorized by statute, shall not be approved. It shall be recommended to you by the commission. You're not bound to take their recommendation. You can appoint anybody you want to. But it's recommended to you by the commission, and that the salary, if one, is to be approved by you. However, it also says that there is to be a salary to be paid to the administrator. Now, whether that's $1 or $100,000 is totally up to you. There's supposed to be a recommendation to you from the commission about who it's going to be, how much he's going to be paid, and the duties are basically enumerated in the code. Now, something you didn't ask me is about the deal with who handles the money. And I think that Kathy is totally correct that this coming year, no matter what you do about authorizing $1 to hire a commission, an administrator or not, one thing is for certain, this year, for sure, in my humble opinion, every dollar that comes in should be handled by nobody other than Bob Brown or his direction. It should be handled by the town. Every nickel should be totally accounted for by that man right there, because everybody trusts him and he's as good a town administrator as this state. We need to get a handle on the dollars. We understand that. We know that. But the whole other issue is the code does provide for an administrator of the orchestra. So when Kirk tells you we need an administrator, he needs to know who is going to be performing the duties that are required of the administrator under the code. What he's telling you is you have to have an orchestra administrator because that's who's supposed to perform these duties. Right now, nobody is designated as the orchestra administrator. Therefore, nobody has those duties. Those duties are in limbo. And he's telling you that it is causing dysfunction in the committee because they don't have someone designated as the go-to guy. Now, the commission hasn't given you a name. And because the commission hasn't given you a name, it's hard for you to approve a number in the dark. Okay? And that's what Kathy's saying. Tell me who, so that I can gauge whether or not the salary is rational. So as of right now, the question, you probably have the cart before the horse. And I love Mr. Luther myself and really appreciate what he does on this commission. However, the idea of we got to know how much to pay so we can know who to get is sort of the cart before the horse. The commission is supposed to basically make the recommendation to you on a salary, but I also think as to the name of the appropriate party so that you can gauge, according to the ordinance, whether that salary is rational or irrational. Your guidance needs to come from the code. Your code is basically very specific. It basically says there is supposed to be an administrator, and that person is supposed to have certain duties. If you want to reject the recommendation of the commission, and actually you don't even have a recommendation of the commission as to a person, you are free to do so. But if you're going to do something, for goodness sakes, make a motion. If you want Bob to be the administrator, appoint him. And then we've got somebody who is the administrator. And if the idea is we want to form a baseline, the town wants to run it, tell the commission you're going to reject their recommendation, appoint Bob or anybody, except me, as the orchestra administrator, give them a name so that somebody can fill that role who can basically do the duties that they say they need to have done in order to have a legitimate orchestra. Now, in my humble opinion, you should do one of two things. You should either ask them to give you ASAP, as in the next meeting, a recommendation in regard to a name. Or, at the next meeting, you should put on the agenda the appointment of an administrator and make Bob the administrator, or whoever you're going to make the administrator. Now, I have a feeling if you ask Mr. Brown, he's going to tell you he doesn't want to be the administrator. But you're supposed to have an administrator because your code says so.
Well, now, it says it's authorized and it says we may. So it doesn't say we have to, it says we may, which may means we may not.
Well, it basically says it's authorized, but it also provides that the person who is the administrator is the person who has the responsibility of being the go-to guy and to perform the administrator's duties. So it basically says, I believe it says that they basically make the that they basically hire, but before they may do the appointment, they have to have it approved by you.
It doesn't say nothing in here about that. We didn't get none of this. Right now,
It's
we
been a
could
while
give them
since I've read the
7,000 and
ordinance,
they could
but,
turn around and hire Joe. I mean, it doesn't matter,
But-
just boom.
but there is a provision in your ordinance. The way the ordinance is set up is there's supposed to be somebody who's charged with the administration of the strut. Now, again, who that person is does not make a whit to me. I don't care. But the way the ordinance is set up, Kurt is right. Somebody is supposed to be the go-to guy. All right? So, for goodness sakes, make somebody the go-to guy. Whether it's Bob or somebody else. Make somebody the go-to guy who has the responsibility of administration. If you want to pay them $5, it's all right. But appoint somebody. If it's me, what I'm going to ask Mr. Luther to do is to please go back to the commission, tell them we don't want to be obstreperous either. Bring us a proposed name. Let us vote on that name. If it's going to be Bob, then recommend Bob. Recommend somebody, and let us vote on that person. And then at the next meeting, we'll know that we either have somebody or not. If they make a recommendation of John Doe, and you don't like it, reject it, and nominate Bob. But somebody needs to be in that position. You asked the question. I hope I've answered it, Paul.
Well, and all again, that's a recommendation. Somebody, they can recommend somebody, we can say no. I mean, that's still a recommendation, so.
But they just want to get some direction, how much to offer this job to the person for.
Well, in the past, I think bid it out and relied on whatever people bid to us, and then saw what people bid and who was the lowest and all that kind of stuff. You know, they can put out a recommendation for people to give them what they would do it for.
I think Bob ought to do it the rest of the year. And then,
You know, I mean, I think we can. I think they've been doing a good job, and I think they can.
Then make that recommendation. I mean,
but we gotta vote on this thing first.
Now, I make one of the recommendations to you, Kathy.
I think Bob ought to do
But-
it. He and Kathleen, and they've all got,
But-
Tim have everything.
But let me make one other recommendation to you. If you saddle Bob with this responsibility and Kathleen with this responsibility, this is work over and above what these people are normally paid for. The code envisions that the administrator is supposed to get paid for this responsibility. It would be my humble opinion that if you are going to saddle my friend Mr. Brown and Kathleen with this responsibility, that provision should be made in advance as to what, if anything, you're going to pay them, and I would recommend that they be paid. The problem is, if you have the strut, and you're looking in retrospect, trying to find what's fair to pay them, you're put in a very awkward position. Get that out of the way up front. Either decide to pay them nothing, or I would recommend that you establish some number. The commission has said $7,000 as a rational number. Whether it is or not, I don't know. We've paid more than that in the past. But if there's going to be additional work laid on these people, both Bob as well as Kathleen and the staff, we ought to decide that ahead of time and basically have that decision made. It needs to be dictated to the Orchestra Commission. That's the way it is this year. Live with it. They at least know. Bob, Kathleen, the rest of them know what they're getting paid. We can move on and maybe put together a strut. And I'm talking way too much tonight.
Yeah, but if you do that, why have a commission in the first place? If you're not going to listen to their recommendations and do and act on what they're actually recommending to do, why have a strut if you're going to tell them, well, the heck with what y'all are saying and what y'all recommending to us, we're going to appoint our own administrator. You suggested an administrator, we said, no, we don't want to hear that. You suggested people be on a commission, no, we're not going to hear that. Why have an orchestra commission at all?
Barry, those are policy decisions that I'm simply your counsel.
And it's basically the same for the zoning and the planning commission. They make recommendations. We sometimes take them, sometimes we
Policy
don't.
commission what?
I mean, it's just,
The answer to that question is a policy question, is that, I can give you my personal opinion, but the decision on how to run the orchestra is a policy consideration for the board.
Again, systematically destroy the festival by destroying the
No,
board,
nobody's
by
destroying the.
taking the people's recommendations, the volunteers to not pay the dime.
I'll be
As
happy
recommended
to come to
to
the
come
commission
forward and
Monday
say-
night. And
They don't want to hear it,
explain
you know,
why
so
we're
it's-
doing
why
it,
do it?
and ask them if it's all right with them. Is that okay, Mr. Luther?
You're more than welcome to come anytime.
Okay, because I think I can explain it, and I think they'll understand exactly the rationale behind it.
We're very accustomed to having council members at our meetings.
I understand, I don't usually go because I
Including
try
there.
not to interfere with you all.
I'm just
But
saying,
maybe-
we're very accustomed to it, so if you'd like to come
I'd be
speak.
delighted to come.
Well, I come because two others show up all the time, so I figured I might as well be there too.
Well, I'll be
Should we advertise that we'll have a forum Monday, or, but I guess that's a commission.
No, I don't want to hear from them, I just want to talk. I don't care about them.
Okay. You're more than welcome. You're more than welcome.
Are we ready?
Well, I'm in agreement with our attorney, we need a vote for an administrator. But I'll say next meeting, we should have a name proposed, or we, you know, a name should be proposed, but I'll
We
vote.
railroad.
Well, should we have a name by next meeting, but I'll, you know, we'll be voting no the way this motion is read.
Wait a minute,
So
you said vote for an administrator or have
Well,
railroad
the name,
Bob?
give us a name, let the commission
At
give us
the
a
next
recommended name,
At the next meeting.
next meeting. They don't have a name.
They have a meeting.
They have a meeting Monday night, they can.
Oh, okay. Did y'all have an orchestra meeting?
Pardon me?
Do y'all have an orchestra meeting without an administrator?
What we have been,
Bob?
Okay.
but we keep putting this back up, trying to get, you know, we keep asking a recommendation for it.
So, are we ready?
Yeah.
All in favor of approval of $7,000 for the orchestra commission and our administrator, do so with show of hands. All opposed?
Barry, I didn't see your hand.
I'm sorry, I voted for it.
And we had skipped the received communications, and I will apologize to James Mack. I think he came in somewhere between A and B, and I forgot. But if you'd like to come forth and do your proclamation, I think you said you had some other people or something.
James Mack, 7483 Eastview Drive, or 295 West Lawn Road. Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Town Council members. First of all, thank you for deviating away from your normal meeting agenda. I was working at a polling place, therefore this gesture was needed so certain residents in the community could vote for a new sheriff. We often talk about school and sports accomplishments. We talk about political issues. We talk about other hot topic local issues. In addition, we converse about how to lower taxes or raise taxes, what politicians should or should not be doing, methods to decrease crime, and so forth. We write about and talk about AIDS, cancer, and diabetes as well. All of the aforementioned are very good topics of discussion. Autism, however, is just as important of a health concern, but is frequently overlooked and frequently discussed. April has been designated as Autism Awareness Month in the United States of America since the 1970s. However, there are minimal articles written about this order, very limited discussions, very limited public service announcements, and most awareness information is conducted internally rather than externally. If you were to take the number of persons assessed with AIDS, cancer, and diabetes, more people would be diagnosed with autism than the three combined. Autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder in the United States, yet the most underfunded and misunderstood. It continues to be an important public health crisis that demands extensive support from all levels of government. As you prepare to read the proclamation in support of Autism Awareness Month, first of all, I would like to invite parents that are in attendance to come up front. educators in attendance. Service providers or direct support personnel that are in attendance. These individuals are impacted by autism on a daily basis, and I felt they should be recognized for all that they do to make the lives of people with autism better and more productive. Thank you. So, you wanted to come up front so you can read.
You wanted to come down here?
Yeah.
Whereas autism is a complex, lifelong developmental disability that is the result of a neurological disorder that affects the normal functioning of the brain and is characterized by social impairments, communication difficulties, and restricted, repetitive, and stereotypical patterns of behavior. This disability is typically evident within the first 3 years of a child's life. And whereas characteristics of autism might include, but not be limited to, difficulties communicating with others, difficulties interacting and socializing with others, difficulties learning academic concepts, and difficulties interrupting sensory input. Challenging and or unusual behaviors may be the result of an individual with these characteristics. And whereas although autism varies significantly in regards to characteristics and severity, it does not discriminate and thus occurs in all racial, ethnic, and social economic groups. Family income, lifestyle, and educational levels do not affect the chance it will occur. 1 in 68 children in the United States have been identified with autism spectrum disorder, and it is almost 5 times more common among boys, 1 in 42, than among girls, 1 in 189. And whereas autism is the fastest growing developmental disorder in the United States and continues to be an important public health crisis that demands extensive support from all levels of government, and now therefore be it resolved that the town Irmo Council hereby proclaims the month of April as Autism Awareness Month in the town of Irmo, South Carolina. And we call observance to the attention of autism spectrum disorder and urge all residents to become better educated on the subject of this disorder and show your commitment and support by wearing blue each Thursday in April as well.
For all you do.
Left or right? Right, left? Both. But you probably can see.
Cassie, thank you so much for all you do.
Oh, thank you.
All y'all do.
Yes.
Cassie, it all in the book. All in the book. Look, absolutely. I'll be happy. Oh, yes, we will.
So, next item is presentation by a citizen. This is where anyone who would like to address Irmo Town Council on anything, whether it's on the agenda or not on the agenda, may do so at this time. All we ask is you give us your name and address for the record. Anyone?
Mr. Mayor, members of council, good evening. George Glassmeyer, 100 Denbeck Road. Mr. Mayor, I received a report within the last few days, and I want to ask you, Mr. Mayor, what you know about it, whether you can confirm it or not. If true, it concerns me greatly, and I think it should concern the citizens of this town as well. I received a report, and again, if this isn't correct, I want you to correct me, Mr. Mayor, that Councilman Walker took it upon himself to take some town property, to wit, some topsoil that belonged to the town, and as I understand it, paid for it after he took it, and then, as I understand it, only after some people noticed he had done that. Do you know anything about that, Mr. Mayor?
I know some.
First of all, nobody's talking to you, Mr. Walker. We're not debating.
We're here to hear the conversations from the people, to hear your responses or your questions. Now, if you have something you want to say to the council, you go ahead and say that.
I wasn't talking to you. It's rude for you to interrupt, Mr. Walker. I wasn't speaking to you. I specifically directed my questions to the mayor, and we're not engaged in a debate. We're engaged in a question and answer here. And frankly, I'm a bit surprised that all of a sudden you want to defend yourself now, but you haven't defended yourself in the proven things that the things I've proven you've done wrong.
I have to defend myself.
Well, good. Then please don't. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. I'm sorry I interrupted you. Please continue.
I heard a rumor similar to what you heard, and I'm not going to ask Mr. Brown to get involved, but to some degree, yes, I think you're correct.
Okay.
The whole whereabouts and when and what they paid and all that kind of stuff, no, I don't know. Again, just kind of what I've heard here and there too.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question that I think you certainly need to answer. Did the town receive any revenue from Mr. Walker or someone on his behalf for topsoil that he removed that was town property?
From what I understand, yes.
Okay. Then let me ask this. Who determined how much that should be? How was that determined? When did the town of Irmo get in the business of selling topsoil, and may I buy some?
I don't know, and...
You don't know what?
Oh, I don't know how it got determined and how much it was. But best of everything I do know now, no, we're not selling dirt, and no, you can't buy any, I can't get any.
But Mr. Walker can.
Well,
But
hopefully
did.
not anymore, yeah.
Okay, so it's a one-time transaction.
I hope.
You hope, okay. So that doesn't preclude me being able to get it since you haven't told me.
Yeah, I've asked to, but from what I know, I can buy my dirt cheaper at Lowe's.
Well, be that as it may, I'm concerned that the town's all of a sudden in the topsoil business. So.
Well, I hope not, because usually I know we have surpluses on stuff.
Well, tell me what's for sale.
Sometimes we have police cars. We don't have none right now.
iPads.
Sometimes we have iPads.
Oh, you mean like the one that you wrote a bad check to the town to buy? Is that the one you're talking about, Mr. Walker?
I don't know what you're talking about, bad check. How do you know about a bad check?
All right, so you deny that you wrote a bad check to the town? Do you deny that?
How do you know I wrote a bad check to the town?
I have reliable information to that effect. Do you deny that?
Let's bring it in.
I don't hear you deny it.
Just kind of directed at me, and I'll either politically...
You got quiet all of a sudden, didn't you, Mr. Walker? Yeah, thank you.
But no, we're not supposed to, and I've asked, can I use trailers to haul furniture on, and I've been told no. And I've asked, can I have people paint my house, and I've been told no. I've asked if I can have equipment to use at my house, and I've been told no. So
good.
Hopefully between all the questions I asked, I hope we all got a good understanding that no, we're not entitled.
Well, and I have even a greater concern here. From what you tell me, there's at least some basis to this incident that it did indeed occur, because you told me the town received money for this topsoil that Mr. Walker allegedly took. If I go into the Walmart...
Mr. Mayor, we're going to have a discussion about...
Please don't interrupt me, Mr. Walker. I'm sure he'll give you a chance to defend yourself if you want to.
I don't have to defend myself.
No, you don't have to. That's right. You've proven that time and again.
Listen, I mean, is this a debate or what? I mean,
No, nobody's kidding. I'm not debating. I'm asking questions.
So
Yeah, and I'm presenting something.
You're asking questions on something that, how in the world did you pop?
I believe I have the floor here, Mr. Walker.
And we've allowed questions in the past, we even allowed people in the audience to speak a while ago while we were speaking, and we do that, and that's fine, we don't, so, you know.
Mr. King, you know, or Mr. Mayor, if I go into the Walmart and select an item of merchandise and then walk out the front door and get into the parking lot and haven't paid for it, and then all of a sudden store security comes out and says, you took that item without paying for it, it doesn't, if I decide, okay, I'll pay for it now, that doesn't make it okay. The crime's been committed. Now, my question is, was a crime committed here? And if so, has law enforcement been advised and has it been investigated?
No, as far as I know, it hasn't, and I don't think anybody probably has filed anything, so. Nothing as far as.
So you're telling me no crime, you're satisfied that no crime occurred?
Yeah.
Okay, that's all I have. Thank you.
Anyone else?
My name is Betsy Peterson, 204 Leamington Way in Irmo. Thank you for the proclamation you have made on autism awareness. I wanted to show you this picture is my son. His name is Weston.
What's his name?
Weston
Weston.
Peterson. He's 18 years old, and he's a student at Francis Marion University in Florence. He has autism. He's also considered very high functioning. This means that in social situations, you probably wouldn't know that he has autism. However, there are situations where extreme stress happens or anything like that, and he does look like a person with autism with all of the nonverbal, bizarre behaviors that autistic people have. He drives a car. He's an honor student at the university, but he has autism. Children with autism grow into adults with autism. And I'm asking you to consider something that the town council could do, and that is work with the police department in training them to understand individuals with autism, and also first responders. Thank you.
Is that something that, I don't say you or somebody, but they would get with Chief Buck and say, here's what's available, or we have to go find it? Or?
There are some, I have some, I also had prevalence and all of that, but you've already read that. Some resources. I didn't have time to actually pull them up, but there's actually a training network for law enforcement, for people to train how to approach people with autism. My son actually carries a card in his wallet that says, I have autism, you know, I may be nonverbal, I can write, if you write to me, that kind of thing. But, you know, if something happened, if he were in an accident, he might not be able to respond to an officer or anything like that. And there's, you know, 1% of the population that has these kinds of concerns. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Chief, do you know if that awareness is still part of, I know at one time it was part of the Criminal Justice Academy, and, you know, recognizing like normal stops and that type of thing. Recognizing people maybe even with a diabetic situations and all that could appear drunk. Is that type training still, or awareness still part of what goes on at the academy?
They try to cover all kinds of disabilities and special needs, whether it's deafness or diabetes or autism or mental illness, lots of things like that. I know we do special training every year on identifying mental illness in particular. We've partnered with the Babcock Center in the past to address those needs. So this would be spectacular. I have no reason not to do this.
Thanks, Chief.
Okay, not to hog all the time, and I just want to piggyback on what the young lady just stated. I also have a flyer in reference to autism awareness for first responders that's being sponsored by the South Carolina Autism Society. They have 3 trainings that are coming up. One May the 19th is going to be in Mount Pleasant, South Carolina. One May the 20th in Greenville, and they have one May the 21st, or May the 21st in Columbia, South Carolina.
Thanks.
Thanks. Anyone else?
My name is Jerome Tyler. Stay in Columbia, South Carolina, Old Bush River Road. First of all, best man for the job is right there, administrator. And I want to commend Mr. Berry on the last meeting of stopping that contract. That was the most bogus contract I ever heard. Tokyo Joe. And Miss Kathy, me and you talked about this one time before, not seeing things, not knowing things. What gets me is that y'all have all the tools right here for some of these things, and you don't use them. Any musical contract shit, you got Kurt, you got Mr. Berry. That contract, $7,500, Tokyo Joe is not worth $7,500. Y'all going backwards. Last year you brought in a major act. You should have stuck with a major act. Tokyo Joe is not a major act. People came to the orchestra because of who y'all had. Tokyo Joe playing Elton John all night is not going to get y'all people to come. So you need to look at that too. Mr. Berry had a band. Let him look at the contracts. If y'all would have paid $7,500 for that contract, y'all would have got took. It's not saying that this man coming from England, it didn't say he was Elton John's drummer, nothing. Use the resources that y'all have to get things done. The other thing I should have straightened out once before, Mr. Mayor, you made a comment on January 20th. You was on the internet and you brought up the situation about Mr. Walker being a vendor. Then you did it a couple, 3 or 4 weeks ago. And every time I get ready to do either TV or radio, I get hit with these people where the mayor's saying this, the mayor's saying, I had done told you just like I told Glassmeyer.
Mr. Glassmeyer, sir.
Whatever. Mr. Walker was the face of the company. Somebody stepped down on nationwide TV and say I was taking over. He's no longer the face of the company, and that's all he was.
And which company are you talking about?
World famous cobbler. Anything you could assist with him as a vendor, you're talking about our company. Well, you're talking about his wife company, who I work for. So, please, your next thing on the internet, please keep that straight. The other thing y'all need to do is y'all need to come up with something when people come up here and accuse people of doing things like Mr. Glassmeyer accused Mr. Walker of having been a convict, having a record, and none of this was true. And you should have been the first one up here to apologize.
Never said those things.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. And it all goes back when you showed up in the court. I hate to get right. But going to court for his assault, the man tried to rob him. He's not going to show up. You wasting your time, the judge, wasting taxpayers' money. You need to apologize. You sit up here in the public, you accuse him, you say he was a convict, you say he assaulted somebody, so be man enough to stand up and apologize.
When I do something wrong, I will.
You did? You did? You was wrong.
We can talk outside.
You was wrong.
Yeah, let's direct this.
It's nothing to talk about. He was wrong.
Presentation to the council here, not to each other.
The other thing that's coming up, Mr. Mayor, It was some people that was here at the last meeting that couldn't make it this time. So I'm gonna touch bases. Right now, we have a lot of stress. There's a lot of things going on, and the people are not happy with our police department. You cool, man, I got your back. You cool. But it's in the community, it's starting to say now they're reading your mails that you're putting on the internet more than my daughter. And it's why you're always picking on Councilman Walker to now is why he's picking on the black man, which is starting a real racist uproar in our community. So you need to kind of like back off or slow down this crusade that you and Mr. Glassmeyer got going on. It's starting to piss off the black community. Y'all really need to hold up before we have a real mess on our hands and Brian job becomes real harder than what it already is. Sorry, brother. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I think we have an executive session, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Is it for
Contract and personnel.
contract and personnel? So is there a motion for an executive session on contract and personnel?
So moved.
Second.
Well, I think it was three, but I think here.
So